Another SEC team crashes the party. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for the best in discussion, debate, and analysis. So we are going through the college football playoff era 2024 back to 2014, implementing the proposal on the table from the SEC and the Big Ten in regards to 16 teams, 14 teams with the two byes at the top of the list, and then also considering the minimum requirement: 4 from the SEC, 4 from the Big Ten, 2 from the ACC, and 2 from the Big 12. And I got to say that at first glance, I thought, well, this is not going to affect the Big Ten. Not going to affect the SEC for sure, especially with Oklahoma and Texas, because 4 out of 16, of course, the SEC would have placed at least 4 teams in the playoff out of 16. However, the last 11 seasons corrects my original thought. It's pretty stunning how many teams would have been elevated outside the top 16 into the top 16 to make the playoff if there was a set requirement. And that leaves the SEC the biggest culprit in regards to needing teams to be overranked and lifted into the playoff. We see another example from 2022. Let's get to the rankings. Georgia, of course, the dominant team in 2022. They marched on to a national championship undefeated at 15-0. Michigan number 2, TCU number 3, Ohio State number 4. Those, of course, the teams that made the playoff. Bama 5, Tennessee 6. Clemson won the ACC at 11-2. Utah at number 8, 10-3. Kansas State at number 9. And again, we are not trying to transform these rankings into seedings. If it's a 16-team playoff just based on the rankings, then this is the way it would play out. Of course, Utah won the Pac-12 and Kansas State won the Big 12 with an upset over TCU. USC at 10, Penn State 11, Washington 12, Florida State 13, Oregon State 14, Oregon at 15. And how about the Beavs in the playoffs at number 14? Tulane gets the group of 5 bid, 11-2 American Conference champion. As we discovered in the first 2 seasons that we dissected, 2024 and 23, and what I expect to see throughout the CFP era is a logjam of teams at, let's say, around 9-3, sometimes 8-4, that have a bid, a gripe, an argument to get into the playoffs, and there being a difficult decision, let's say, among 7-8 teams with 3 spots at the bottom to make that selection. This particular year, though, as you can see, everybody in the playoff in the top 16 has 3 losses or less. UCLA is the only team outside the top 16 at number 18 at 9-3 that would have a gripe to get into the playoffs. Otherwise, we've got 5 teams at 9-4 and 8-4. And that brings us to our conference count. As I said off the top, many of these seasons, the SEC or the Big Ten or even the ACC and the Big 12 we've seen would have to stretch to get that minimum bid of 4 or 2. And for the SEC in this particular year, only 3 teams made it. Therefore, LSU would have to be lifted from number 17, an 8-4 football team, into the CFP. The Big Ten with 3, the ACC 2, the Big 12 with 2, the Pac-12 at that state in 2022 would have actually had 5 teams in the college football playoff. Look at that. The Pac-12 had Utah as the champion at number 8, USC 10, Washington 12, Oregon State 14, and Oregon 15. Of course, the Pac-12 doesn't exist right now. Now let's look at the current conference alignment and who would have made it. Still 3 from the SEC, with Georgia, Bama, and Tennessee at numbers 2, 5, and 6. 6 from the Big Ten. Michigan 2, Ohio State 4. USC at number 10, Penn State 11, Washington 12, Oregon 15. Wow. 2 from the ACC, 2 from the Big 12. Actually make that 3 from the Big 12, as you would have Utah moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. And then, of course, there's none from the Pac-12. They're done. The matchups look like this. 1 versus 16 is Georgia, Tulane. Michigan, Oregon in the playoff. How about that? 2 versus 15. Number 3, TCU. Number 14, Oregon State. Number 4, Ohio State taking on 13th ranked Florida State. They were a 9-3 team that year, and they last played in the 1997 Sugar Bowl. Bama, Washington played in the playoff in 16. They would play again in 2022 as 5 and 12 seeds. Tennessee, Penn State, nice little matchup there. They played in the Outback Bowl after the 2006 season and also in the Citrus Bowl in 93. Clemson, USC. Have they ever played? I don't believe so. They've never played during my lifetime. Clemson, the 7, USC, the 10. These are the kind of matchups that we've never seen that we would see in a 16-team playoff. And, of course, in the 12-team as well, as Clemson took on Texas this past year. Utah and Kansas State, 8 and 9 seeds. Also, keep in mind that in a 14-team playoff, we would have 2 byes, and they would be right at the top of the rankings. Georgia and Michigan, the only 2 undefeated teams in college football, entering the playoffs, so that makes total sense. Easy for the committee, but that's obviously not the case each and every year. The College Football Show comes your way each and every Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Give me a call. Let's talk college ball, as well as disputed national champions. If you love this kind of stuff, you're going to love this book, Nerds and Junkies. The link's in the description section down below. We'll see you next time with 2021.